Zelensky came to have a meeting with the big orange boss.
Yeah. To sign a deal. That was the plan.
Yeah.
So this whole mineral deal was supposed to be signed yesterday. That was the plan. They were getting together, finishing the deal to then talk about more things in the future. And boy, did it not go how they expected.
Yeah. Nope. So my analysis on the whole thing, okay? Obviously, this is supposed to be something that's like formalities, sitting down with. Trump's had other, like the Prime Minister of Britain was just in the other day.
France was in.
France. I mean, he's had probably at least like 5 or 6 that I've even seen myself. I don't know who else he's seen, that, because I'm busy. I'm not watching every single thing that's coming out of there. But he has a sit down with these people, and even when they have differences, for example, when the Prime Minister of the UK or whatever was in there, one of the things that you could tell was kind of a touchy topic with them was the freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And I think Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance were both sitting, next to Trump, and they kind of chimed in and was like, well, we need to be worried about the freedom of speech thing when it comes to like American consumers of UK products and stuff. Like, we don't want your restrictions on the freedom of speech impeding on American citizens, because we have that right of freedom of speech. And obviously this administration is very expressive about that right. But the UK Prime Minister was like, well, we've had the greatest laws for freedom of speech for the longest time, and I'm very proud of our freedom of speech rights. And he said that, and that was just kind of the end of it. Then they carry on, and they keep up the hospitality between the countries, and I'm sure they had rougher talks in private.
Yeah. That
probably expressed that maybe J.D. Vance kind of pushed back on him. He's like, well, actually you don't, because people are getting arrested over there right now for posts that they're making.
Yeah.
But they at least kept it cordial. Whenever Zelensky comes in, and obviously Zelensky, the way I view this whole thing with Ukraine, right? Not necessarily, I want to separate this from how I view Ukraine as a country, Ukraine with their geopolitics as it is being played out throughout history. But currently, as this whole war broke out with Russia, he kind of had to, but he's aligned himself with the previous presidency and like kind of their way of going about things, their ideology. And obviously, we were just writing them blank checks with all the money in the world. And so my analysis on it is he's kind of got a sense of entitlement to the American support that we've been giving him for so long. I think when he came into that meeting yesterday with Trump, he kind of not only carried that type of mentality, that type of baggage that he had under Biden, but he also, I want to be somewhat empathetic in the fact that he is in the middle of a war. He's someone, supposedly, I don't know, but on the cameras, he's someone that's on the ground, writing up the game plans himself, like he's involved with the war. He's seeing the death, supposedly. I have my doubts, but that's how I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So I kind of empathize with him to a certain degree that he's in the middle of this conflict that's going on where thousands of his soldiers are dying a week, and he has to come to America, which, I'm just trying to look at it through his eyes. You're going from war-torn Ukraine where buildings are demolished and people are going to, he said it himself, people are going to school underground and like having church services and stuff underground. Like there's a constant fear of being attacked. Coming to America, going to the White House, the presidential Oval Office, having to sit down with hundreds of reporters all over the place, watching every movie you make and doing interviews and stuff. You can tell he's kind of like dull-eyed to a little bit of it, He's kind of like, well, here in 4 days, I'm going to have to go back and be back on the front lines and hear more of the stories of my people dying and stuff. So he's probably, me giving him a bit of the doubt, he's probably a little bit on edge. Probably, I don't know if he literally is, but like a sense of sleep deprivement type of mentality, Like he's over there working hard about real issues. So the way he approached this conversation was just kind of like, in my opinion, like a kind of entitled, demanding, this is what needs to get done. Like, this is the goal that we need to strive to, and that's what I want for my people. And obviously, the whole issue that they had with their talks, that the thing that kind of sparked it, not only, if you watch the interview, the full length of the interview, you kind of see that it even started off with him kind of like in a mood. I mean,
kind of combative.
Yeah, I mean, he's like rolling his eyes about certain things and, looking away.
Yeah.
And so, like, those, any knowledgeable person that's actually observing you in your conversation, and like someone like me who somewhat knows body language and can interpret like how you're actually feeling about something, like someone like JD Vance, I guarantee you, is skilled enough in communication to where he can catch those eye rolls, he catches those shoulder shrugs, those lookaways, and he he interprets that as a disrespectful manner. And, I guarantee you a lot of people in similar roles, if it was the Biden's previous administration, they probably would just look at all that stuff, and since the cameras are rolling, let's just skim past it, we'll get to the behind the doors. But Zelensky was very adamant on this whole idea of this deal resulting in a ceasefire, and he's bringing up the history between Russia and Ukraine, talking about, well, we wrote down a ceasefire on paper, and Russia just kills our people anyways. They go and do whatever they want to do anyways. He talks about 2014. He did mention something, like he basically says that this is going on from 2014 all the way to 2022, which 2022 is when the actual war broke out.
Right.
So I don't know. He mentioned a 2019 deal signing that he did that supposedly Putin had gone back on. I don't know what that deal was. I don't think I ever heard anything. The only conflicts I know with my history, and I probably blame it on ignorance. I could probably go do the research, figure out what it is. But the only thing I really know is what broke out in 2014 and then the war starting in 2022. But he talks about this ceasefire isn't enough. And he's saying like he needs like a security to be able to defend himself. Yeah, security guarantees to be able to defend himself if Putin ever wanted to come back again. And what does that ultimately mean? He wants more guns, he wants more money. He's even throwing around the idea of them becoming a nuclear power once again.
Or joining NATO.
Yeah, we're joining NATO, exactly. And so, in Trump, his kind of perspective on things is, well, let's get this deal done first. He's like, I don't want to talk about any of that crap right now, because they're still in the middle of moderation between Russia and Ukraine. And yes, you need to make Ukraine happy. You also need to make Russia happy. And if you're sitting here talking about security deals that could involve things, like you said, with joining NATO or giving them more money, more guns, nuclear weapons and stuff, obviously that's stuff that's going to be making Putin more angry about the whole thing. Like, that's going to be going against him. So Trump's still trying to stay in the middle, and really it seems like he just doesn't want to talk about all that right now. What he wants to do is get investments, American assets over there in Ukraine, stuff that we are making money from. And I think his whole mentality behind that is if you get money over in Ukraine, you're going to protect your money. And so if we have this giant deal where we're pulling minerals from Ukraine, and it's a very lucrative for us, if Putin were to do anything that would put that operation at risk, per se, we would go over there and defend it. That's another reason reason why I guess America would get involved with a future conflict if it were to happen. But Zelensky didn't want to just stop right there. He's like, no, we need security stuff in the future. That's where the conflict broke out. And another point that I do want to make, I saw CNN, I told you earlier, CNN sent out a report that was fact-checking JD Vance or Trump or whoever with that conflict that happened. And they fact-checked and they said, in reality, Zelensky has thanked America over 33 times. Because there's this whole idea that JD Vance was shooting out, that you haven't said you're thankful once. But if you actually watch the interview, JD Vance follows that up. You haven't said you are thankful once since you've been here.
In this meeting.
So he's talking about currently, right now, as we're speaking, trying to get this mineral deal together. And so I just want to point out, like, that's another way that media is trying to paint a narrative, paint the picture, and, like, show how the Trump administration is lying or being bullies. But to a certain degree, I did enjoy watching Trump kind of, like, little brother him. He's like, at a certain point, he was like, no, you've done enough talking. I'll talk. And, I even saw the meme of the Sopranos dude. It's like he puts the finger out like that Italian dude. He's like, you've done enough talking, all right? It's my turn. It was very entertaining to watch. That's besides, like, the seriousness of the situation. Yeah. It was entertaining to watch our politicians and just, like, open diplomacy in the American media. Like, when have we ever seen that?
Yeah. Well, so I want to say that, actually start with that, because that's the first thing that I watched a lot of people, so I watched people from both sides yesterday just to kind of get their perspectives. So I saw the right, what they were thinking, I saw the left, what they were thinking. But I did see a lot of former White House staff members being interviewed, and all of them said the same thing. And this is important for everybody that's listening and watching this. Those type of conversations happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not usually in front of a camera. And I think that's what threw people off. So to say, like, this was disrespectful or this was an interaction with him was not good, that's not accurate, because behind closed doors, there's lots of yelling, there's lots of arguments, there's lots of frustration with each other, and that happens all the time. So It's just not common that you get to see it happen in the Oval Office between two presidents. So I just want to make sure that we understand that. So yeah, you just happen to see what happens behind closed doors. Now I'm in the same situation. I'm trying to be empathetic as you are. You have a guy who's been through a lot in the past 3 years of trying to keep his country alive and make sure that there's some stability option in the future. So I certainly understand that. He did look worn out. He did look like he's obviously has been through a lot, and he's trying to it's a chess game, I'm sure, trying to put the right pieces where they're supposed to go. But there is I don't even know if entitlement's the right word, there is this feeling that when he walked in, that this was like, okay, we can do this, but I want all of this other stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I heard, and again, what I've read, what I've heard, you never really know, but there was conversations with him before he walked in saying, this is how you need to handle this. You need to just say, thank you, appreciate all the effort you guys have given us, let's sign this deal, and we'll work on the other things later on. Because there was multiple people, Lindsey Graham was one of them, that basically said, I've already told him that the security guarantees are going to be things that we're going to discuss, and we're going to try to make sure that those things happen for you. Yeah. But for whatever reason, he brought it up in that meeting, and then kind of like started to scold the vice president of, well, you've never even been there, you've never even seen it.
What diplomacy do you speak of? Have you ever been to Ukraine? You tell us about problems. Have you ever been to Ukraine?
Yeah,
very disrespectful.
It is, but I will also say it's also a valid point to say that he maybe has tried diplomacy in the past. And I don't doubt that Putin has overridden that and not followed what had been signed. So to say, well, let's use diplomacy when you've seen it not work, maybe he has a really good point there. But also, Trump's point is you were also dealing with a different United States president at the time who was not aggressive, who was just writing blank checks and think money is going to throw and fix the problem, when in reality that's not going to fix the problem.
No.
I think every citizen in the United States probably knows that you can't just throw money at an issue and think that it's just going to make the problem go away. I mean, it helps hold them off, but eventually somebody's going to get tired of fighting, and I don't think it's going to be Russia.